Okay, good afternoon. I hope everybody's had a good lunch and is getting their cup of coffee ready to get through the rest of the day. My name is Tom Suter. I am the founder and CEO of the Advanced Technology Academic Research Center, and I'm really happy to do this webinar. I know a lot of you tune in to Kirsten every week. I come out of retirement for webinars every once in a while, especially something like this. So we're going to be talking about zero trust, driving transformation, modernization in the federal cybersecurity. If my panelists can jump on. In the meantime, I'd like to welcome all of our attendees. Special thanks to Shelley Scarpelli and the entire Fortinet federal team. Fortinet was the first webinar we did after pandemic, and we kind of started our whole webinar series. Oh my gosh, what was that? Second week of March 2020. Seems like we had a few webinars about remote work and cybersecurity since then. So anyway, this afternoon, we're going to hear from our panelists, followed by a Q&A session. We'll pop in a few poll questions, and I'd like to encourage the audience. I'll look at these, just pop them in the Q&A if you have any questions at any time. Real quick introduction for our panelists, and then we'll dive into the discussion. We've got Bo Hauser, Chief Information Security Officer, Office of the Chief Information Officer at the U.S. Census. We've got Rick Tirian, Director of Cybersecurity Operations at the Internal Revenue Service. And we have Daniel Dister, Deputy Director, Office of the Enterprise Chief Information Security Office at the Bureau of Information Resource Management at the U.S. Department of State. And last but certainly not least, we have Bill Lemons, Director of Solutions Architecture at Fortinet Federal. And definitely got the company thing. You too, Bo. Got the company logos in the back. I like it. Maybe we can just start the discussion. Yeah, I really like the idea of that security is not a negative thing. It's not a bolt-on. It really is essential to driving modernization and transformation. We saw a lot of that during pandemic, accessing citizen services. And let's go ahead and start with you, Bo, to kind of kick us off of what you're working on in the census, and how do you incorporate cybersecurity with all the business processes you've had in that you've been doing for a while now.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. We've got a certain window here, and it never stops at census, right? Some folks say that the decennial census is the big show, and it certainly is, but there's never a dull moment for us. We recently released some retail sales numbers that got a lot of attention in the press, and we're always contributing to the nation in that way. So, but we do have a couple of years here when we're planning for the 2030 census, where we've got some time to kind of reorganize. So we're using this time to really push hard to get into the cloud as much as we can, and we're doing a great job there. Part of that transition includes things like zero trust, like DevSecOps, and the other novel cybersecurity enablers. The way you put it, I like the way you put it. It is a true enabler, especially this day and age, because the consequences are just dire. When bad things happen. So we know we got to get this right. We know we got to maintain the public's trust in us to really fulfill our mission. So we're using our cloud migration to really get at a lot of these topics that we're going to talk about today.
Great. Let's go with you, Rick. Another agency, you just got an influx of some funding. I know you're doing a lot of interesting things there, and it's another citizen services function of government. Love to hear about what you're doing around zero trust.
Yeah, with the IRA Act, IRS is working aggressively on improving digital business for all citizens, bringing over 22 million people so far to IRS through identities, adding new services for accessing their accounts and their return information, has made cybersecurity a core function in how we deliver digital business securely. For us, zero trust has been a culture change. It's been about focusing inward on our previous models of how we did reactive security and applying proactive security going forward. We're thinking beyond, the zero trust approach of the 5 pillars of zero trust and that the integration component of zero trust, but also looking toward how do we move IRS networking into a self-sensing, self-defending enterprise. So really, taking the automation aspect of zero trust and all of its integration of sensor information and being able to do decisions automatically about access, about devices being on the network, about data, because it's really all about the data and knowing where the crown jewels of information are at all times and being able to know that we can make access decisions immediately about accessing that information.
Great background there. And Daniel, you serve a lot of constituents overseas and here in the United States. How are you working in zero trust, especially, you're working in foreign countries and it's more of a challenge than it would be maybe here in the United States.
Yeah, it is. At the State Department, we do have a broad IT modernization effort, just as many other departments and agencies do. The key is to make sure that zero trust and cybersecurity is a central linchpin of that modernization and not seen as an add-on, not seen as something you have to do and don't want to do. So we have a very broad enterprise-wide zero trust plan that we're working on, but we've had to kind of tailor it to the environment here at the State Department. You can't do everything all at once. That's the one thing that if you haven't learned that, it's a valuable lesson. So we have to prioritize where we're focusing our zero trust efforts. We have to sequence it properly across the department. And, so we sequence it starting with kind of the crown jewels, the enterprise services, and then we have to move towards the kind of the one-offs, the non-enterprise services, the smaller bureaus, and the overseas locations at embassies and consulates. The problem with that, or the challenge, I guess, really, that the State Department is at 270 locations around the world. So I think that's in 170 countries. Those IT environments, they're kind of like snowflakes. No two are alike. So we have an extra set of challenges that we're focused on. But the key thing for us was to make sure we understood how we were going to prioritize it and how we're going to sequence it, because even though when you think about the core concept of zero trust, which reminds me of the movie title, zero trust is like doing everything everywhere all at once. You have to implement cybersecurity everywhere in everything, but easier said than done. So again, prioritizing, planning, setting up, an orderly approach to do that. And we have our sights set. First, let's get to the advanced maturity level in the system maturity model for the 5 pillars, realizing that there are cross-pillar initiatives as well. There are a number of things that occur in all 5 pillars, and let's not forget those and try to bring those across, because those include things like governance and automation and orchestration, very important things to implement, but again, very challenging with a kind of a very decentralized and federated environment. So that's what we're working on, and it's keeping us fairly busy.
It sounds like it's keeping you really busy. Bill, is a company, I mean, you deal with lots of different commercial clients. You see across government. What trends do you see? What are some of your observations as you work across many different clients?
I guess the trend toward zero trust has been very prevalent, both on the commercial side as well as the federal side. Fortinet Federal specifically, we've taken a renewed effort at trying to create that bridge between the transition from the commercial space into the federal market. And there are a lot of similarities, but there's also a lot of differences. And we need to make sure that we not only help facilitate bringing that technology from the commercial sector and making it relative to the federal space, but also ensure that we can support and maintain the needs of our federal customers in that vein as well. So making sure that in many cases, a lot of vendors will come with the approach that it's a single vendor solution to try and get things done. We know in the federal market that's very much a best of breed approach, across the customer. So the ability to do integration and work together across vendor boundaries is incredibly important. So the Fortinet Federal Organization is building that additional muscle to help our agency. As well as our partners, service provider partners, as well as systems integrators, be enabled to support that integration effort and ensure that transition to zero trust can happen in that best of breed environment.
See, we have a major supplier of cybersecurity. They say they can't do it all. It's actually realistic. We've found out a lot when we've done our zero trust lab, and what we found out, there's a lot of great companies out there. It's impossible for one company to address every aspect in all 5 pillars of zero trust. And just a little commercial, we have a government only event tomorrow, and we put together about 10 different teams of integrators that are integrating the solutions. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how these can work. So I've actually want to talk next about integration and then also prioritization that Daniel brought up, but maybe we'll start off with just let's go prioritization. I'll get back to integration. How do you prioritize different? You need to do everything all at once, but it's like you have to prioritize a little bit, right? What's the right balance?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we are prioritizing all the actions related to our cloud migration. And what that means is, as we're moving from our data centers into the cloud, we are trying our best to make sure that it complies with a zero trust architecture. And this is really bigger than Census. It's actually happening across the entire Department of Commerce. We're working closely with the headquarters, and we're trying to achieve economies of scale with the solutions. Identity services, for example, is a good example of where we're all trying to move together where we can. The other one is our SASE provider. We're trying to figure out if we can go with 1 or 2 SASE providers that, again, can integrate well with other solutions. To you guys' point earlier, it's not one size fits all ever, but there are some best of breed services that are prioritizing their integration capabilities. And those things are important to us at Census, because we've got a very diverse mission set when you look across commerce, with NOAA, with the Weather Service, NIST, with what they do with research, us at Census, and then other bureaus too. So it's pretty diverse. So we need that capability. So that's where we're focused now. And again, I mean, it's just too daunting to think about doing something universal across the enterprise, so to speak. So we're really trying to focus on that cloud migration and get it right there, for us.
Great. Also, just as a little bit of a follow-up, Bo, how do you work inside of the greater Department of Commerce? Are you trying to do common things together? How does that interaction go with your fellow CISOs?
The collaboration has improved very dramatically over the last couple of years. The leadership at Commerce is really on board with focusing on the mission, right, and building the cyber end, because again, it's really a no-brainer these days, and so that's helped a lot. We create cross bureau and agency working groups that come together and really work through these complexities and get to, oftentimes get to a good place, and certainly highlighting the challenges along the way. So I can't compliment that enough, from how the department is really coming to the table as a stakeholder interested in my mission, right? And that dynamic is very different than what I've experienced at other organizations and what I've experienced in the past at Commerce. So it's really a new sort of culture that we're taking advantage of.
Great to hear. Yeah, we had Andre Mendez just recently. He's all about collaboration and stressing that.
He's a big part of it. He's
Yep.
certainly a big part of it.
Great. Thank you. Let's go to you next, Rick. I mean, you have your tax period. You have something every year that is the Super Bowl basically for you every year. How do you prioritize, and when do you kind of prioritize different things as you get closer to the tax season?
Yeah, we work on tax season throughout the year. It's like the football teams go, like the NFL goes, there's always something going on, year round for the NFL. There's something going on at IRS year round for tax season. And cybersecurity is no exception to that. And I run a 7x24, SOC operation. So, I've got eyes and ears on the data and the systems, round the clock. Throughout tax season and everything else that IRS does business wise. But, we've had, a number of work streams in flight before Zero Trust started. I think like a lot of other agencies are on a push for multi-factor authentication, for encryption of data at rest, for encryption of, data over the wire, for network segmentation and micro segmentation, all things that that have been in flight at IRS and we continue to make progress on. We wanted to take a particular focus toward what can we do about making near real-time decisions about device authentication, devices being on the network. We've had in place for the past year, a way to implement, binding operational directive 2201, which requires, for known exploitable vulnerabilities, that you have to either remediate, remove or isolate, devices that can't be remediated by CISA's deadline. So what I wanted to do, and we've been working on at IRS, is how do we move from patching as a compliance type activity where you're measuring performance of patching by a deadline set in policy, to what do we need to do about our patching process so that we have zero attack surface on any given day. And knowing that patching is one option. Now, how do we introduce removal of devices in a safe way, or isolation of devices in an automated way? So we've had a concept in place for workstations for the past year, and we're taking lessons learned from that, and applying that to the server environment, across, the IRS's, entire enterprise. So, so our priority is, what can we do to keep attack surface as small as possible on any given day?
That's fantastic. Next, I'm going to go with you, Bill. I'm sure customers come to you. I want a laundry list of things. They'll probably fail if they actually tried them all at the same time. How do you help them navigate, kind of doing things in some kind of sequential order to a degree, right?
Yeah, I think what we try and do is map to their mission priorities as well, and try and help them in lockstep with, whether that's an identity focus, whether that's a focus on a key set of attributes or data that needs to be protected in a certain way. I think the patching example was another a great example of where we have virtual patching capabilities that can potentially help augment that type of that need. So that as the whole process develops, you get a more comprehensive solution in play. So trying to make that alignment to the agency missions is really where we're trying to go, and ensure we take into account any integration requirements that are there, to ensure that it's something that can scale and also fit into their environment with minimal impact to other systems that are in play.
Great. Daniel, you started this. Anything else you want to add about prioritization?
Well, we found it necessary to prioritize actually on several different axes, if you will. So we had to prioritize our efforts when it came to the Zero Trust pillars. We couldn't do all 5 pillars at once. We decided to start with the identity pillar as kind of foundational piece, to make sure we understood who was on the network, and that we were, doing all the things that were necessary for users like the multi-factor authentication. So we prioritize our effort by the pillars, and that was one thing. And then we also prioritized based on criticality of the systems that were involved. So high value assets is an obvious one that we wanted to prioritize anything that was going to be focused on a system that's an HVA, or similarly though, enterprise-wide services. As I kind of mentioned, we have a lot of federated deployments, but we do have a lot of commonality with certain enterprise services. And so those certainly took a high priority when it came for implementation of the various capabilities under Zero Trust.
Great. Let's go to the polls, because some of the questions coming in are to our poll questions. And so poll question 1, have you observed a shift in cybersecurity strategies within federal agencies from traditional patching and remediation to transformation, modernization efforts? We usually start off with a straightforward one. We can't vote. We used to be able to vote, panelists, and now we've been banned from voting. We'll have to work on that technology again. It kind of come and goes. I don't know, but I like to vote too. So.
They don't want us to put our finger on the scale. That's
yeah, I don't know. I want to. Okay, great. I don't think anybody's too surprised, but that's a good baseline there. And next question. Are you aware of key guideposts and best practices for optimizing zero trust architecture plans in federal IT and security teams? All right, the people are going to vote. Let's see the results. I think we got quick trigger people. Okay. I think things have changed. I think it was more heard about it, but not actively implementing. I think we're starting to shift. It's starting to shift over since the last time 3 years ago when we started doing these. It's just a little bit. So I think that's promising.
And there are a couple of models out there. There's CIS's model, but there are a couple of other models out there to look at. But the important thing is to adopt one, do a maturity assessment, and that helps you prioritize, right? Like it's been said, you can't do it all at once, but you can, from that basis of your baseline maturity, you can figure out what you want to prioritize on, do some work, right? And then assess your maturity again. And then you may see, a new priority emerge as you make accomplishments in other areas.
I think that's right, Rick. And at Census, we did something similar. We used NIST 800-207 and also the CIS maturity model. And I think that allows you to understand the framework to facilitate the conversation, right? But then you got to go, I think the hardest part for people is translating those conceptual models into an operational implementation. And to Dan's point, identity is a key pillar, critical pillar. I think that's where agencies are the most comfortable. But if you think about the data pillar, for example, by itself, you're really talking about encryption, which a lot of folks understand encryption at rest, encryption at transit. I think folks are comfortable there. But the other element of that data pillar is data loss prevention technologies. And then that's where we have the capability to label data directly using the metadata of the data. So it doesn't matter where it is, it has that label. And then you create a corresponding policy that governs that label, right? And you can define how the data can move around, who can access the data. That's where your attribute-based access control comes into play, and figuring out how to create that policy, how to prioritize those attributes based on the identity, obviously, the device, the environmental factors, geographic location, for example. So you can really be creative when you get to that policy level. And that concept is the zero trust concept, attribute-based access control, the policy applied to the resource, in this case, data. But I think the pillars give us that that framework to have that conversation, to figure out those details, right? If you're looking at the device pillar, then it's a different conversation, but the same concept, So that's I think that's sort of where folks are when it comes to that journey. It's certainly a journey, and there's a lot of pieces and parts before we're going to get there.
Yeah.
I just want to add that, first, we need to understand that there's a difference between what was called for in OMB memo M2209, which really was just setting the very bare basics of zero trust to kind of get agencies started. Then the CISA maturity model came out, and that has a lot more to it when they finally updated that to version 2. The NIST pub came out, but I'm kind of reminded of when I was taking, graduate classes years ago. When I was doing research, I never found all the answers in one place. And so I don't find all the answers in the maturity model. You certainly don't find all the answers in the OMB memorandum or in NIST. So, I look everywhere. We've also tried to steal liberally if we needed to from the DoD Zero Trust reference architecture. Anything we can do, DoD can do, 5 times better because they're larger. They have, let's face it, they have a large budget, but they do great planning. And the DoD Zero Trust reference architecture is just a great document. So, we feel free to kind of consult all resources, pick the best ideas if it helps us out. But obviously, we set our targets, based on the CISA maturity model. But we're trying to leverage any resource we can to help out, because even the maturity model and NIST are not as precise as you might want to find, and you need to like a secondary reference to kind of help you out. So we try to kind of look everywhere for good ideas, and I think they refer to it as searching for the good idea fairy. Try to get us find the best path to accomplish these goals.
I think that's really the reason I formed ATARC, was to bring everybody together to share these best practices. I love hearing how state cares with DoD. I don't know if we always did that maybe 20 years ago or 10 years ago, that maybe the mechanisms weren't there, but I think you take the best you see and that make it your own, right? Anyway, back to my questions. I think I'm on question 2. I want to go to a little bit about, I remember, Bo, when you were at SBA, you basically rationalized all the cybersecurity you had and reduced it. But let's talk about integration too. Like how did you integrate what you have existing? What's the right balance? You get new tools, you have some that you have from before, and I know the integration is a big issue. How do you handle that at Census?
It's tough. It all starts with visibility, right? If you can't see it, you can't manage it, and you can't protect it. And again, I think this is an area where industry is really moving us forward. And again, there was a question, concerns in the questions about cloud service providers and the security there. And I know there's been some notable, breaches in the news lately. But the security in the cloud is probably the leading security in technology today. And let me explain that, because I know that might be alarming based on the recent events. The recent email compromise, for example, just to kind of cut to the chase, if we would have had a zero trust architecture set up, we could have easily said, you got to be this user, right? User ID, strong multi-factor authentication. You have to be on this device, which we know is associated with that user. And then you have to be coming from this geographic location, right? Which is associated with that user. We know all this telemetry today because cloud services incorporate that telemetry natively. That wasn't set up, right? So we didn't have a zero trust model to lean on to neutralize that threat where that key was stolen and access was granted. We could have easily done that, right? We can't do that on-prem, but we can do that in the cloud today because cloud service providers are really taking this seriously because they have to, right? There's a business incentive for them to do that. So that telemetry is the root of the visibility. And then with the tools that include the AI and the machine learning and all the other attributes, that's already there as well. So we could quickly escalate anomalies to the top of the stack so that the humans the work the humans are doing is much more valuable compared to the traditional models where we have to chase things and gather evidence and sort of, get to the point where we can do the actual investigation of the anomaly. So I still think cloud is certainly the way to go because of that innovation that's happening so quickly there. And of course, this won't be the last breach, right? So we can't fool ourselves either. There's certainly challenges, and we got to get this right because consequences are high.
Yeah, let's go back to that. Maybe I'll go with you, Bill, since you are in industry and this probably keeps you up at night, right? How do you, what's a good best practice to mitigate from these, we're talking this integration, there's 5-6 software companies, one of them could be breached at some point, right? It doesn't matter. The biggest ones are, as we all know, now without mentioning any company names, but everybody on this webinar knows what I'm talking about. How can you help as a trusted vendor in this ecosystem?
Well, I think we'd have to be just as relentless with regards to our practices for managing our development process, right? Just like you, the agencies are focused on securing their assets and ensuring that that their data is protected and the right people are accessing the right ones at the right time. We have to be just as diligent with our intellectual property as well. And that's both from the outside as well as insider side of the house as well. And again, one of the reasons why we formed Fortinet Federal is to try and provide that additional level of cover and color and influence, if you will, to Fortinet Inc. with regards to the need for that level of scrutiny, ensuring that we have a trusted supplier program with all of our contract manufacturers, make sure that we track software bill of materials, and that we, from a secure supply chain perspective, make sure that we are diligent about documenting that and making sure that we follow through with that. So those are all things that we're doing and continuing to improve upon in that that continuous monitoring evolution, kind of mirroring what zero trust architecture is, right? I think it was well said that it's a journey, right? Implementing a zero trust architecture is just a journey. I don't believe it'll ever be an end state, because the threat environment is not an end state. It will constantly evolve. So just being diligent in the same manner that our commercial and federal customers are in our own infrastructure as well.
So you're implementing your zero trust strategy and keeping that going just as.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're using our products, and as far as being able to control access to our assets, and you take the crown jewels first and start to protect those and move through the environment. So we're trying to feel the same type of impact that we feel our customers are going through as well. And learn from that process so we can improve both the products and our ability to support.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we got a chance to cover that. Rick, maybe we can go back to the integration piece. How do you rationalize all the products you have, and now that you're going to zero trust, kind of pulling together what you have, maybe adding new products? How do you go through that process?
Yeah,
Seems very
I
challenging.
think
Yep.
it's important to understand how a product will work in an organization, in an IT shop in particular, right? As a cybersecurity organization, where we're sensing and identifying and detecting and protecting and responding, our focus is not on the implementation of products and different aspects. It's really about leading a strategy and coming up with that architecture that gets us to that strategy to execute cleanly. It's really about if we're looking at a SASE product, what's not only the best product from a security standpoint that gets us towards zero trust maturity, but what's one that's operationally sustainable in our organization. What's our workforce status on it, considering the organizational changes that may have to come with introducing some new products in an IT organization. You really can't make a decision only on the basis of it's the best security product out there. You really got to factor in, is it suitable in the IT organization? Is it suitable in the overall architecture of the IT organization and how it wants to go forward in its digital transformation roadmap as well? So, it's really about, being able to facilitate, the what Zero Trust means to the agency, what it means to the security of the agency, and then, leading the implementers and the O&M organizations into making the decisions for themselves, coming up with, hey, this is my product range that maybe we think fits the bill. You as the implementers, you as the maintainers, you take a look at that, you do a bake off, do whatever you want to do there. But I want to see you come up with how your approach to how we meet this target.
Great. Daniel? And I think you said you have all these different people there, they want to do their own thing too. So it's even a bigger challenge, right?
Yes, right. Yeah, we have a worldwide challenge. But the thing, we do have a variety of tools, and we found some tools that are doing similar functions for cybersecurity, and we are trying to narrow those down where possible, because we've had bureaus kind of doing their own thing for some time, and we're trying to move as many of them as possible to enterprise-wide services rather than at the bureau level. But there's corporate inertia, as there is with any large organization. We're trying to get through that, and we're finding that in trying to organize everything around Zero Trust, it gets really tricky with what I would call the sequencing and the resourcing as well, because you're trying to do all these things, and you have different groups trying to implement different capabilities, perhaps even from different pillars, and you can't even operate on all those things at once. It's like, if you had two people who are going to change a tire on a car, and yet you say, well, if I put 100 people changing the tire on the car, will it go any faster? No, it will not. So it's the same thing. You can't just throw a lot more money even at a single problem unless you understand how it has to be sequenced, how it has to be resourced. And so, being able to find a way to integrate the activities is just as important as integrating the software, because the activities, you have people frankly getting in each other's way. Again, you can only have so many people changing the tire at one time. So it's a very broad, very significant effort. We have to try to get our handle around those things that we can. And like I said, when we reach the kind of the far ends of the earth where we're also located, we're going to get to those places too. But again, we've had to do a lot of prioritization along the way. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Right.
Thanks.
So Bill, I'm going to see on the other side of these integration projects, like is one of the people one of the companies being integrated. How do you see that being successful? What are some of the best practices that you've seen on successful integrations?
Well, I think the biggest part is just recognizing that it's an absolute need to do that. And when the products are conceived, ensuring that what is necessary to allow that integration to occur is baked into the platforms themselves. So we heavily rely on our APIs, both for configuration management as well as telemetry gathering and distribution. And it's not just leveraging those in and of themselves in canned ways, but also getting our team more familiar with how those integrations work, and extend that knowledge base to a larger group of people, so that as unique opportunities present themselves for integration and the sharing of data and telemetry and information and control, that that there's a more experienced group to help support that as well. So that as those unique requirements come about, we can sit down with that agency, with that integrator, and help them in the process of coming up with the right solution to help not only improve the ability for that total solution to be manageable and scalable for the future, but also to minimize the impact on the individual user as well. Because I think that's a lot of things have been mentioned up to this point with regards to how the staff is dealing with the change of how to manage and operate those environments. But it impacts the end user, and we want to make sure that the end user itself has the best experience possible. The best way to implement security for the end user is to make it transparent, make it something they don't have to do something different in order to make use of. So if we can enhance telemetry, enhance our policy control without really heavily impacting the user experience, I think that the whole solution is more successful.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm thinking this, but Fairfax County at the end of last year, they went to their teachers and they did a phishing thing where they said, you get a $25 coupon at the end of the year. And it kind of made news. I thought it was kind of funny. I guess that wasn't that funny if you're a teacher, but it really exposed the workforce. DHS did that like what 10. Yeah, it really exposed. How do we train our workforce? Somebody asked a question around that. What's the best practices for this massive workforce you have, and they're doing lots of other things besides cyber? Maybe start off with you, Bo.
We do phishing exercises monthly at Census for that very reason. And it's so interesting, the different themes that we use and the different results we get. And it seems like those with an emotional trigger, a sense of urgency, they always get a good response. Over time,
I think that's a bad response, actually. But...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, over time, our awareness has grown, pretty well. So I think it was last year was the first time we had more employees reporting the phishing exercise than clicking on the exercise, right? And we've been able to maintain that awareness for some time now. So we're pretty proud of that. But yeah, the human factor is always the weakest link. And if you're not focused directly on that, then good luck.
Right. Rick?
Yeah, so at IRS, every phishing click in a phishing exercise is a teachable moment for us. So as soon as someone clicks, what they're getting is instant feedback and instant training on the spot about, hey, you clicked, this is why this was a phishing message. This is why you shouldn't click on it. This is the kind of things that you should look for. So we have kind of that instant feedback that goes to folks right away, as soon as they click. And like other agencies, we do it monthly, but also, we look at the data, we look at the patterns of who are our repeat clickers in the organization and what's behind that, because we're giving them this instant feedback. Do they know that this is training and they're just trying to see if we're listening and we're watching? And then so we do take it a step further. And if we see, that people aren't getting the message, it does feed into our insider threat program, and it feeds as a marker, as a data point into, hey, maybe someone needs to call this person's manager and have another teachable moment with this person who just can't seem to stop clicking, right? But yeah, I mean, it's because people will always be a very significant threat, right? But it's not. And what Zero Trust does is you don't think about it as insiders or outsiders. You don't think of it as internal employees or third parties or partner organizations. It really, you really think about adopting a model that it's everybody that interacts with your data, in some way, shape, or form, and extending your policies and extending your approach to that, understanding that there is no, dividing line of internal, external in that Zero Trust world.
Yep. Daniel?
Well, we have a really unique challenge Not only do we have, corporate employees, so to speak, we have contractors, but all around the world, we have what's referred to as locally employed staff that support the embassies and consulates. So we have locally employed staff in China, in Russia, in every place we have an embassy and consulate, and they have access to certain systems. I wouldn't say all systems, but they have some levels of access to systems. So we do have a very robust cybersecurity awareness training that's required. And that training is tied to the personnel system. And so if when the timer goes off after 1 year, if they haven't taken the refresher training, their account is locked automatically. I've heard that at other agencies, I've been at a number of other agencies. We dreamed of doing that, but we actually never took that step. But here at the State Department, we do. Actually, it'll just block your account if you miss that training. We also have elevated privileged user training for those with root and system admin access, of course. The one thing though I'll just mention is another lesson that we learned from our friends at DoD. They've come up with some zero trust awareness training, both for regular folks, for technical folks, for their executives. And we had one of the folks from the DoD Zero Trust Portfolio Management Office come over to the State Department and talk about what they were doing. And he talked about their training courses on Zero Trust. And we thought, boy, that's what a great idea. We need to do that. At which point he offered to make the courseware available to us. And we're happily going to take them up on that because, it's you can't tell your senior executives to just read the OMB memo, to read the executive order, to read NIST or the maturity memo. You need something that will guide them through that's appropriate. So we're definitely, again, going to leverage as best we can some of the DoD ideas about the concepts of zero trust for executives and for other folks here. And, we thought that was just a tremendous idea in addition to all the other cyber awareness training that we're doing.
I don't want to get Bo in trouble, but I think the seniors are the biggest problem. I know in my company, we did it in the president of the company, we told him we were doing it and he still clicked on the link. I mean, what are you going to do? Bill.
Yes.
Davis.
Yeah. We do have a lot of similar training events, activities on a regular basis, as well as the yearly certification requirements as well. But I think we also, as a network security company and provider of training to our users, we also make we have a certification program called the NSE program that obviously focuses a lot on our technology, but some of the first few levels go through a lot of the basic awareness pieces as well, right? What are the different types of attack vectors? What are the motives behind those people? What are the techniques that they use in order to carry out the various attack vectors that they leverage? That back at the beginning of the pandemic was made available for free to everyone. And even as the pandemic starts to wane, the decision has been made to continue to have that be a free resource for anyone that would like to consume it. So both the diligence within the company itself to kind of foster that that type of awareness and training, as well as making that training available to others, is something that we're focused on both sides.
Yes, this has been a recurring thing with ATARC and OMB. How can we do micro-credentialing? And even industries, it should count for something. And speaking of credentialing, you actually get credentials for being here at ATARC. That's why we ask the poll questions. If you do the poll questions, you can get a credential. So before I forget, because sometimes I get in trouble, I can get in trouble with the CIOs. I get in trouble with my spouse every day, but I don't want to get in trouble with the CP people. So the last question is, how do you perceive the potential of zero trust architecture and enhancing cybersecurity for federal agencies? Hey, we can submit. Uh-oh. Yes. All right. Let's see what this one says. I don't want to taint this poll, but after after this webinar. I think it's shooting up. Can we see what? There we go. Okay. There we go. I actually thought everybody would say highly promising and effective. So anyway, I don't want to taint it up. Interesting. All right, we're getting closer to the end in the beginning. Anything maybe we can go around the horn and just some other challenges and observations you've made around this topic. Maybe starting. I'm going to start off with you, Daniel. I'm going to go in reverse order.
Yes, I think the overarching challenge is that you can't really get to your zero trust goals in 1 year or even 2 years. We're looking at 3 to 5 years, and when we talked to DoD, they also described it as about a 5-year process. So that might get to the meat of that last poll. We're really kind of early in this process. We're making strides, but I don't think it's been seen as success yet, because we still have a ways to go. But it's a journey that takes a lot of time and effort for any organization, and we recognize that. But of course, everyone wants to see results now. Everyone wants to see positive metrics and everything like that. But it has to be looked at in the long term, because there's so many factors that have to be influenced in zero trust. When you start breaking it down like a work breakdown schedule, all the things that have to happen, it's just really incredibly detailed, and it involves people, IT people all across the organization, to do a number of very complex tasks and make sure, again, it's all integrated and works. So it's just it's a long road that we have to realize. And I don't think I think we would be turning the corner in about another year. We might be in a sweet spot for implementation, but everyone's journey is a little bit different as well. So thanks.
And it's like you're making progress all the way. You're getting more and more resilient as it goes. So it's not like, I think you're saying it's been 5 years. It's like, oh, we go from 0 to 100. It's like, the good thing is while you're doing this, you're getting more and more resilient all the time. So that's good. That's fair. Rick?
Yeah, and it is a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen with one product or one service.
I think Rick froze a little bit. I think we lost Rick for a second. We'll have to figure that one out. Bo, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I'll jump in. My recommendation is to pick something small and manageable, and then focus on that as far as the zero trust implementation. And I'll just give you an example. If you pick something like email, and that's been in the news lately, and then you look at how you're accessing email today, it's a traditional model most likely, but cloud service providers have the capabilities built in today. So you don't have to add anything, you don't have to do anything. You just simply need to use those services. You can quickly require the right level of authentication. You can require a specific device associated with that user account. So you've got the right user, the right device. And then there's other attributes that you can also require to get more sophisticated. And then you have zero trust in front of email, right? And so pick simple use cases to get yourself oriented in terms of zero trust, and then go from there. There are opportunities, like when you're looking at a specific network use case, it may inform more of a broad enterprise solution. And you certainly want to take advantage of that and consider that. But for me, looking at it at that lowest level, and again, cloud's the opportunity, because cloud service providers are building these capabilities into the fabric of the cloud. So they're making it so much easier for users to tap into these things. But the requirement is we got to use them and we got to get it right. If we can do that, again, security in the cloud is much, much higher than any other model we can think of today, right? So again, easier said than done. We've all experienced this, I bet you, right? If you get a new phone or a new laptop and then you log into your Gmail account or your bank, you get extra friction on that first login because they don't recognize that device. And then usually there's a checkbox. Do you want us to remember this device? That's zero trust, right? So it's already prevalent and we've all experienced it. So that's the model we're talking about with our enterprises.
Yeah. And I think some of these cloud providers, because I was actually at your old place and saw this demo, they actually show you where you can improve. So they give you a checklist basically, and you just keep working at the checklist and getting more and more resilient. It's fantastic. Rick, we got you back. We kind of like right when you started talking, you went out a little bit. So
Yeah,
you
I had
pick up
5
where you
minutes
left
of
off.
pure brilliance, and yeah, and you heard none of it. So.
At
I don't
least.
think I can repeat it, right? But yeah, and what I was trying to say was that when you think about your journey on implementing zero trust, think about it in terms of user stories and thread those user stories through your model, right? And when you implement, it's okay to test on something simple, but when you roll out, I would say do prioritize on your high value assets, right? Try to do the big things first. Because if you can't do that, and in the meantime, you could be at risk of a data breach or something significant happening, and you'll be caught saying, well, I was in the middle of implementing zero trust, but I hadn't gotten to my HVAs yet. So, by all means, I think, when you're thinking about deployments, focus on, where the crown jewels of data are and start there.
That's good advice in any business. You really don't want to postpone the hard problem, and say, oh yeah, it's easy to pick up the easy things. Great. Daniel?
Yeah, I don't think I have, much to add. I mentioned, the importance of sequencing and resourcing and prioritizing. So, yeah, that's where we're at. It's just a multi-step task. So we have to just keep churning away, work through the issues, work through the coordination. Coordination and collaboration is a tough one sometimes when your workforce is distributed globally, but wherever they are, it's not any easier if they're all under one roof either. I don't think that's the magic answer. I've seen that be as difficult as trying to deal with someone who's across the world. So yeah, coordination, collaboration, communication, make sure they all understand what the plan is and understand, support it, and are ready to execute. So yep.
Great. Well, Bill, any final observations to close this program out?
Well, I think there were a lot of great examples of plans, right? And how each plan had its own uniqueness, and that uniqueness was related to the mission and the challenges that each one of those organizations has. But I think it highlights the fact, like everyone said, a plan is necessary, and to be able to execute against that plan. So as long as you're thoughtful and methodical about moving down that path, I think the journey to zero trust can be a successful one. It can improve the overall position and posture of your environment and the security of your high value data or any data you choose to protect, right? And that we as vendors are not only bringing products to bear in support of that initiative, but also trying to take on the challenges of providing with the integration support to help ensure that in an environment where best of breed products are being used, that we provide the level of integration support that's necessary to make that a seamless and scalable attribute moving forward.
Great. Well, we'll end it with that. Thank you, Bo, Bill, Daniel, and Rick. And thanks to this great crowd that we've had today. Great questions, and appreciates everybody's time, and have a good rest of the week. Oh, one more poll question. I forgot. I'm a little rusty. Would you like to receive your CP credit? Perfect timing. Okay. Well, I only answered one, so I have to answer honestly. No, I can't get it this time because I only answered one question. All right. Thank you all.